It's Saturday evening. It's time to talk about the very best comic books that you could buy this weekend with our good friend Drew. How you doing, Drew?
Doing great, man. Yeah, just doing some writing. But let's take a break from that. Let's talk about some of the best comics of the week.
There's a comic book out there called Ultimate X-Men #1. Peach Momoko writing and illustrating this one. Feels very different from what Ultimate Spider-Man has been, or Ultimate Black Panther, or even Ultimate Invasion and Ultimate Universe, the other books that have preceded this one. I think it's a thought-provoking comic book. I think it's well illustrated if you like Peach Momoko's art style. And there's a lot of things to kind of like about what she's put into this thing. But my big question is, how can you call this Ultimate X-Men when it doesn't seem to have any themes or even characters or any idea that's normally prevalent in an X-Men comic book?
There is nothing A, Ultimate, or B, X-Men related in this comic. I would never associate those words with Peach Momoko or this comic. This comic was idiosyncratic and outsider #1. That's what I call it. This is not X-Men related at all. When it comes to the best X-Men books of the week, it's a pretty low bar because the other comics sucked. I would say this was the least worst X-Men comic of the week, even though it had nothing to do with the X-Men at all.
Easily the best X-Men comic book that we got this week, because X-Men was in really, really bad shape. What's interesting, I don't even think the main character, at least the way that she's presented within Ultimate X-Men #1, is a mutant. She appears to be deriving her armor power from some type of totem. She seems to derive it from that rather than being a mutant herself. So I just came away kind of confused by the book. And I do think people that are looking for an alternative to X-Men, and I imagine there are a ton of X-Men fans that are looking for an alternative, kind of like Spider-Man fans that are looking for an alternative to Amazing Spider-Man, or Black Panther fans that are looking for an alternative to Eve Ewing's Black Panther run, that come into this expecting an alternative take on X-Men are going to be wildly disappointed.
Absolutely, like I was, not let alone having Peach Momoko on it, because, hey, I mean, I've made it no secret, I do not like Peach Momoko's art. I've always considered it amateurish at best, and I've compared it to a sixth grader in study hall drawing when they're bored. It's not impressive to me at all. But like you said, this book, it is counter-programming to what we're getting with the X-Men, as opposed to the Ultimate line, which is okay, I suppose. But this story itself, it's effectively a day in the life of Peach Momoko. Her own words, by the way. Those are her own words. This is her self-insert story. A girl who's in school who feels like an outsider, which is fine. Okay, you're halfway there to an X-Men comic. You're halfway. But what happens next? Oh, they talk, they cry, they talk, and eat, and sit, and sleep, and talk. What's ultimate about this? Oh, yeah, nothing at all. Period. There's nothing Ultimate or X-Men about this except for Armor, who shows up. Whoop-de-fucking-do. What did she do? Oh, yeah, she talks. I was bored out of my mind with this comic.
I don't think the word ultimate is supposed to be like Ultimate Warrior or anything like that. I think it's just supposed to denote that it's taking place within the Ultimate Universe.
I understand that, but when you have a word like the word Ultimate itself, it comes with feeling very powerful. Ultimate is a very powerful word. There's nothing powerful about this comic. There's nothing powerful about this art. Nothing powerful about this story, and which leaves me very underwhelmed with this story. I don't understand why people love this. I don't get it.
I certainly like it a lot more than you. The only reason I'm not calling it a hot is because it says Ultimate X-Men, and I don't think an X-Men comic was even close to being delivered in here. But I do think there is a thought-provoking series in here, or a thought-provoking story with really good art if you like Peach Momoko. I'm personally a fan, certainly a much bigger fan than you, and I think there's some good stuff in here, but it shouldn't be called X-Men, or at least not yet, although I have been told that it will get more X-Men related within a couple of issues, so that one was a little bit of a head-scratcher. Let's get on to the best comic books that we're definitely going to want to talk about this week. From the indie comic books, we do have Void Rivals #7, Robert Kirkman writing, Matthias Lopes on art. I guess this is the forgotten series that was in the Energon Universe, and this is a home run. This is another really good issue of Void Rivals that I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about, as we have these two outcasts that are supposedly going to bring these two cultures and societies that have been at each other's throats together, because they basically come from the same place, but they're trying to be wedged apart. And we have a really interesting character enter the mix here, that it looks like he's a normal guy, then you realize he's actually somebody that's been defeated quite substantially and is actually going to go into the void or the unknown to go out there and try and track these characters down. And I thought it was really, really cool and a great reminder that Void Rivals has been excellent.
Yeah, I really enjoy this series. And you're right. I mean, it has the unfortunate circumstance of being lost in the shuffle when you have other titles like G.I. Joe, Cobra Commander, Transformers, and Duke. It's like, oh yeah, Void Rivals is also tied into this too. It just, because there's all those characters that everyone knows, those legacy characters that everyone already knows, and you got these new ones. It's like, oh yeah, we got them too, which they're good. They're fine. They're really good characters. And I really, really, really love this issue. I mean, even though we feel like these two characters will get together in the end, eventually down the line, they still can't help themselves but keep secrets from each other and possibly backstab one another. I like that stuff. You know, there's always that constant drama. It's fun. There's a character in here, Wes. I'm not sure if you thought the same as me or not, but he looked exactly like a character from an IDW series called The Kill Lock. It's like this big armored guy who shows up. I'm like, he looks very familiar here. I wasn't sure if that was him or not. Or
the Wraith?
Coincidence. Yes, the Wraith. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was him or not, but he looks just like him. But yeah, I love the political intrigue in this issue, the drama with the series, the loose tie-ins to the Transformers. It's so much fun. It's a recommend all day, any day.
Absolutely. If you haven't been checking that one out, do not miss out on the Forgotten series in the Energon Universe. Another indie comic book I think a lot of people will enjoy, TMNT Saturday Morning Adventures number 11. Eric Burnham writing, Dan Schoening on art. This is the conclusion of like a 3-issue little mini story that they have, where basically we have Shredder and Donatello went to the past. Shredder came back with a forever sword, and he's going to use that to not only bring back the Technodrome, he's going to bring back a Technodrome from the future with all kinds of new capabilities, and the Turtles themselves obviously have to stop that from happening, or Shredder and Krang are basically going to take over the world. If you like the cartoons, this feels just like that, and it's a lot of fun and very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, this was a fun Turtles book, and it continues to be fun because the creators understand who the Turtles are and who the Turtles are in that animated universe. Maybe it's just me, but I always laugh when I read the name Professor MacGuffin. Whenever I see the word MacGuffin show up in a comic or used as for a character, I get a kick out of it. I laugh. And yeah, like you said, Shredder here is trying to bring back the Technodrome. Will he do it? Can the Turtles stop him? You gotta read to find out. The art, the dialogue, the story, it really brings back that feeling and appeal of the original animated series, and I'm there every time. And it's a very fun read for parents and kids. And like we've mentioned before, Wes, if you're with your son, you can read this with your son. They're going to have a blast. And in the absence of the current TMNT animated series, this is the next best thing. Do check this out.
Absolutely. And obviously, it was a big week for TMNT. They had the follow-on to The Last Ronin, which is intriguing, but I don't think quite recommend ready yet. Got to establish those Turtles first. Now, this is the part normally where we would talk about all the recommendations for Marvel Comics, but Marvel really had a terrible week, and there's nothing really worth reading.
No, I couldn't recommend anything either from Marvel. Like I said, the closest we got to was that ultimate, quote-unquote, ultimate X-Men, but it happens. It's happening more frequently now. You know, either DC or Marvel, they'll just fall behind and just won't have anything that we could competently recommend for someone to read. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but it happens.
Now, we are going to follow up or finish with DC Comics, and they have 3 books that I think people should read. The Batman First Night, #1, Dan Jurgens, Mike Perkins. I believe this is Elseworlds. I thought they were trying to do something type of Gotham by Gaslight, but maybe they're just going back to like the very first iteration of Batman. It's an interesting story. It's a different take on Batman than we're currently used to. He's definitely a playboy. He's got the Rolls Royce while everyone else is going through the depression and all that stuff. They don't have soup to give their kids, and obviously he's in a higher station of life and doing much better. Some interesting things kind of flow out of this one. We've got some men that should be dead, but turns out that they're monsters, and Batman is doing a little detective work trying to get to the bottom of that one. In a week where Batman 145 was a reminder why you don't like Chip Zdarsky's Batman, this is a reminder of what good Batman can feel like.
Yeah, this was the one issue I was looking forward to all week over any other, and it was good. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was good. Look, Mike Perkins, he is a terrific artist and one of my all-time favorites. His work on the Stand adaptation and Swamp Thing currently is uncanny. But it's abundantly clear in this issue that he had a lot of digital assistance when it comes to the backgrounds, which is disappointing to see. But he does a great job of visually establishing what a 1939 Gotham City would have looked like during the Great Depression. The color palette for the issue was interesting. I can't quite place it, but it's different in the choice. I guess it's supposed to match that dirty, grimy visual look of what Gotham would have looked like, which he does a good job of that. The dialogue in this as well is kind of interesting because there's a lot of, I call it modern day-isms in this, that where it's clearly someone would not have said back in 1939. And maybe it was Dan Jurgens trying to backpat himself. Maybe. It takes place well before U.S. entered the Second World War and we're still isolationists. The stuff about Nazis felt very premature. Stuff with the rabbi as well felt kind of out of place, not very believable for 1939. But the action is good. The take on Batman and Bruce Wayne is a lot of fun, as is Gordon. It's very fun, mysterious, dark. It's page-turning and visually stunning, and I can't wait to see where it goes to next. It's one of the best Batman comics we've gotten in a very, very long time. If you say you're a Batman fan, you didn't pick this up, do fix yourself. Pick up Batman the First Night, #1.
Go right by Batman 145. It's not really worth it at this point. We've got another book to talk about, Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, #5, Robert Meditti writing, Gavin Guidry on art. I really enjoyed this one. Obviously, this is the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor kind of explaining where the Metallo suit came from. And Superman, Clark Kent, decides to go to Moscow and take it to the people. And it's one of my favorite moments in a Superman comic in a couple of years when Superman sets down in Moscow and he tries to talk to a girl and she starts crying. A man breaks a plank or a baseball bat over his head. And then he looks up and sees a father running away with his infant child because they're all so scared of Superman because of all the propaganda and everything coming from the Soviet Union, all that stuff. I thought it was great. And the look on his face was absolutely priceless.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I love the art in this. I mean, how Superman is illustrated in this series, I wish every artist would illustrate him this way. And some of my favorite stuff in this issue is with Lex Luthor. Every time he talks, I always hear Gene Hackman, and it's so true to the character, 100% through and through. I love it. And I love, like you said, the last few pages in this issue. Like US, I loved it. This is the Superman who avoids at great lengths a conflict whenever he can. He's a friend and will always try to talk some sense into them. But by the end of this, Superman is unfortunately left no other choice but to become a man of action. This is a terrific series, a true representation of who Superman is and his supporting characters and who they are. I'm smiling ear to ear with every issue in this series. It's terrific. If you say you're a Superman fan and you're not reading this, fix yourself. Do pick up Superman, The Metal Curtain, Superman 78, The Metal Curtain. It is fantastic.
Speaking of side characters for Superman, I feel completely vindicated by Kneel Before Zod, #3, Joe Casey writing, Dan McDade on art. A lot of people wanted to call the series Kneel Before Ursa, and I said, you're jumping way too quick onto this one. It was clear that they were using that moment where she kind of dressed down Zod to motivate him, and it kind of all comes to a head here because we do have the planet basically being invaded out there. It turns out they have a weapon that is able to change the yellow sun into a red sun, depowers Zod, depowers Ursa. Thankfully for Zod, he's able to persevere, but it looks like Ursa, who you all thought was the star of the book, well, it doesn't look like. She just plain up died. And I thought this was a complete vindication on my part to say, you guys are reading way too much stuff into this in issue #2, and I think he brought it home in issue #3 already.
I think some people have busted out the jump to conclusions, Matt, and are using that, unfortunately, right now. I think reports of her death are greatly exaggerated. I'm fairly certain she's still going to be alive. She's still alive, and she's still going to dress down Zod.
She has 3 lightsabers that she was impaled by.
No, she's fine. There's going to be some magical MacGuffin, if you will, we brought that word earlier, that's going to be used to heal her, and she'll be fine. And she'll be back to dressing down Zod in no time.
Talk about the jump to conclusions, Matt.
I could be right there. We'll see. You could be right. I could be right. We'll find out in the next issue.
Joe freaking Casey, man. Why are you treating him like he's Vita Ayala?
It's not the same Joe Casey from 20 years ago. This isn't the same. What's so funny about True Justice and the American Way Joe Casey? This is barely the Savage Spider-Man Joe Casey or nonstop Spider-Man Joe Casey. I really hope that she is dead. I hope she does stay dead in the next issue. To provide some good motivation for the character. But yeah, I think we're both maybe using a jump to conclusions, Matt, a little prematurely. But we'll see what happens next.
I'm jumping to conclusions based on the comic book saying, hey, look, she's clearly dead. She's been impaled and she's dead. I'm just trusting that the story is, being honest about it. You're jumping to conclusions, basically mind reading Joe Casey and what he's really trying to do.
I'm following the basic trends that would have happened in other DC and Marvel comics, what we have got. And
this is not Megan Fitzmartin. This
and
is
it's not the
fucking
same Joe
comic book
Casey.
legend
20 years
Joe
ago.
Casey.
Well,
He deserves the benefit of a doubt.
We've seen creatives, who have gotten less creative as their careers have progressed or regressed, if you will. But we'll see what happens in the next issue.
I'm calling this a W, man. I'm completely vindicated by this issue, and I think people are going to enjoy this Kneel Before Zod. This thing's going on for another 9 issues at least.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I thought it was a good issue. I really did. But we'll see in the next issue. Next issue, we'll see if she really is dead.
Well, we shall see. I feel like I'm just putting that one in the win column, and I do want to say thank you very much to Drew for joining us after making himself look like a fool last week with Avengers Twilight. Oh my goodness, that's not going to age well.
I had a lot of supporters in those comments. There were a lot of people who supported me, so I made it
craziness. I do want to say, if you want more comic book reviews and discussions about the week's comic books, every Thursday on the Patreon, Jim from Weird Science and I discuss all the new releases from Marvel, DC, any comic books, not just the good stuff, not just the bad stuff, but everything in between as well. And it's a full accounting of everything coming out, especially the really big titles. If you haven't checked that out, there's a link in the video description, and I think you guys will have a lot of fun with that one because Jim and I are a hoot together. I can't believe you didn't admit you were wrong.
No,
oh, my goodness.
We'll find out in the next issue. We'll find out in the very next. We'll see.